Hi, welcome to Are We the Only Ones? I'm Kathy, and today I'm going to talk about how the United States has gone into full, well, actually, I guess it would be Donald Trump, but because he is the president, the United States by proxy, but really Donald Trump and by proxy, his government have gone full Bond villain. I'm Gen X, so I grew up with the James Bond films, and it's actually interesting to also know that Sir Christopher Lee, who was the White Wizard in Lord of the Rings, was actually the inspiration. Like, the actual person, Sir Christopher Lee, used to be in the clandestine services, which is basically the highest level spy service, MI6, but higher. So that means that he actually, well, this is also why, his brother-in-law was Ian Fleming. And so Ian Fleming would hear all of his stories from when he, used to be a spy. And even in Lord of the Rings, when he was on set and somebody was getting stabbed in the scene, Peter Jackson was giving some director's notes on how to react to being stabbed. And Sir Christopher Lee had to stop him and say, actually, that's not how it goes. When you get stabbed in the lungs, you actually can't scream because there's no air. And so you have like a certain type of like gasping. Like, you don't have like a lot like, you don't scream. You're like, and it just collapse on yourself, basically, because there's no air in the lungs for you to be able to scream. And he knew this because he had seen it firsthand. And therefore, when he would have conversations with his brother-in-law, Ian Fleming got inspired to write the James Bond series. So James Bond is actually Sir Christopher Lee. And it's interesting because I've also seen a lot of old interviews of Sir Christopher Lee talking about crossing paths with wealthy elite that were into dark magic. He was with how he used to call it, and like then I think he did mention satanic rituals, and he was saying it was very dark, and you lose your soul if you join that. And so it was interesting to see a very clearly old interview where these things are corroborated by somebody who is already known and documented as someone who was in the clandestine services, worked at the highest level, and you could see how like he would have cross paths. The other thing about Sir Christopher Lee is also that he was like a heavy metal rock star too for a little bit. He had a heavy metal band, so that in itself is an interesting understanding about all of where the James Bond series comes from. And so now, as a much older adult, and I'm looking at Steve Bannon, Stephen Miller, Trump, and all their cronies and stuff, it's very much like they see themselves in these Bond villains. Like, all we need to do is get Trump a white cat. You know what I mean? Just like, but it's very interesting to me that now the International Criminal Court is basically meeting with the UN, and I think there are conversations that I have read about where they're discussing all of the violations that the Trump administration has made against Americans and non-Americans in the United States that has risen to the level of being a crime against humanity, or crimes, plural, against humanity. And this is something that I have actually been discussing from the beginning of the entire ICE sort of campaign, was that when you separate children, especially very, very young children, like we're talking about babies, toddlers, caregivers, the kids that need caregivers because they cannot like, function. Literally cannot move, cannot feed themselves, cannot advocate for themselves. So in wartime, if you kidnap children from the opposing side and you separate those children from their parents or caregivers, it is considered a form of genocide. And it has been defined as such in regards to any wars that have happened, and also for Native Americans, because the United States government also kidnapped their children and then re-educated them in English-speaking American families. And so even though we're not technically at war with ourselves, right, we're not in civil war, not officially, the fact remains that the acts of kidnapping children, and then also now once they're detained, handcuffing them, not giving them medicine, not giving them food, not giving them water. Also, any acts of sexual violence, so any acts of rape, anything that has to do with like genitals in general. So like they are stomping on the testicles of boys and men in Texas in the ICE detention centers. That was reported on by North Star. And I think it's very important that the international community meet without us. I think it is actually necessary. I think that the only way that we can get any traction with this is through the international community. So we see that Prince Andrew is no longer a prince. He's Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and now he's even being exiled. And I'm pretty sure that when Prince William takes the throne, he's going to exile him, like full-on banishment, to almost like eradicate his existence. And a princess and Norwegian princess was also held to account. There's various prime ministers. There was a sultan in the UAE that has now been arrested for sending a torture video to Jeffrey Epstein. These are people that you would have thought could never be taken down. Like, it's very interesting that we have like no kings protests, but currently at this time, the kings are doing better than the American government. So at this point, it's almost like kings are better. It's really interesting how to say no kings. I'm like, well, I don't know, maybe we want a king. Modern kings seem to be more accountable, held to account, right? So why do we let this go? I don't understand what it is about Donald Trump that he's been able to get away with this so long. But when you understand that controlling media this is what it can do. It can allow for somebody who is not qualified to seem extremely qualified, to actually cross over from reality TV and then go into real world politics and actually win, not once, but twice, even after failing leadership during a pandemic. I also just saw something they call the Epstein-Barr Virus. There's a vaccine for the Epstein-Barr virus, which is also a cure for MS, that has been basically like shelved because it's not as profitable. I'm not exactly, but the other thing that was interesting was it's called the Epstein-Barr virus. And I was like, did they fund, like, why is Epstein and Barr together in medical terms? And it's just sort of like, did he fund the research for this? Is that why his name? I don't even know if that's his name, but it's just weird to see Epstein and Barr together outside of what we're already talking about, politics, and then to see it in like pharmaceutical terms. I was like, what? This guy's name everywhere. So I also find that when stuff like that happens, you have like things that remind you of monumental moments that are going on in your life at that time, or like news or something, and then it reinforces through a different way. I always have to pay attention to that because there's some kind of like weird energy, that's like, just pay attention. So I've had weird things like that happen in my life where I had something that I wasn't sure about, and then all of a sudden like 3 things from that person's life crossed my path that would never have crossed my path. And then it makes me sort of recognize like, oh, you need to pay attention to whatever the situation is. So I feel like right now we have multiple things going on, right? I just saw that Melania Trump is now considering like permanently moving out of the White House, and they already lead separate lives, which is something that I had seen. The former editor of Cosmopolitan had gone to a screening of Melania, and she said that what she noticed about that was the most obvious thing to her that wasn't really being reported was that Donald Trump and Melania Trump don't know each other. The way they speak to each other, it's like they don't know each other. Like, and I have not watched the documentary. I don't plan to watch the documentary, but once it comes out for free, I might watch it just so I can be informed about them. You know, I don't want to help give them ticket sales, but I do want to be informed about who I'm talking about, who I'm discussing, right? And it's interesting because she's trying to do some kind of fashion brand that's like Melania's, which it makes sense. Like, you know, if you're coming from Eastern Europe and you're like, your only upward mobility is to marry, and then you actually make it, and then everything in America up until that point for you is all about a branding exercise, and you come from a family that's like all about branding and making money, and so of course that's all she's thinking about. But the reality is, I was a former fashion designer. I used to design for celebrities. My very first client under my own label, Kathy Wilson, was for Stevie Wonder at Obama's first White House Correspondents' Dinner, where he wore my jacket. And so I understand, like, I have more of a fashion career than Melania Trump will ever have in terms of actually designing, actually executing it, and having it worn and photographed for a celebrity who is an icon at an event that celebrity would be extremely proud of, to the point where I'm sure he keeps that jacket in his closet and will never forget like where he wore it to and everything. So for her, she's usually the recipient, right? But it's interesting when the person who's the recipient wants to cross over and become the brand, the name, right? Which, you know, if she wants to do it, she can try. I mean, I'm not saying not to try, but the reality is this: the consumer market does care where they're spending their money now. And especially because now that we know that the money that we've been putting into banks and big media has only contributed to keeping us from a better life, and when I say that, I say this because I'm specifically talking about national health care, okay? We need national health care in America for obvious reasons. All the mental health issues that we have from school shootings, all the mental health issues that we have from just the way that even like children that have to live in a society where their parents are overworked and overstressed out. The economy is very, you know, our American economy is very expensive. So you have to work, and or you have two-parent households. You know, we've created the system where we believe that we need to be financially independent from our parents, and everything is literally based around doing that, getting out of your parents' house, succeeding, and whatever that means, right? Now, if we reassess that and we go, okay, I'm going to now put my money into places that I actually do believe are good. So I would say go shop at Costco. I would definitely try to do farmers markets more. Go shop at the farmers. If you can find them directly, you can do a CSA, any of those things, so that you can help the actual people on the ground and not the corporate overlords that are in their yachts and don't care. Now, if there is a corporate overlord that is a kind corporate overlord, I guess that can't be really the word, right? But if you have like a benevolent leader, let us know. Share that information so that we know we should go shop there. Now that with online shopping, we can shop in any state in the country. So it's not like it has to be a local mom and pop. It could just be mom and pop, period, right? So when we're doing things that have meaning with each other now, we have to actually recognize, like, this is something we want to do, not because media told us it was cool, not because it's for social media, but because it creates a connection between us and whoever we're with. So even now, like I'm going on a cruise. It's my first one on Virgin, and I've already paid in full and everything, so I can't refund and cancel. But to find out Richard Branson, was good friends with Jeffrey Epstein, I have to like, when I'm doing this may be my only cruise on Virgin because of everything. Whereas, for instance, Royal Caribbean, when Puerto Rico had their devastation, Royal Caribbean sent a cruise ship over there to pick up the evacuees from Puerto Rico and take them back and rescue them. Whereas that means they beat the American Navy out there. And it was just one of those things where when I saw that, at the time, I was only sailing on Disney at the time. I had done 8 cruises on Disney. I had seen that, and I said, you know what? I even commented on the news story, and I said, I have been sailing on Disney the entire time. I'm a loyal Disney cruiser, but I will be switching to Royal Caribbean for my next few sailings to support. And there were a lot, huge, like I think 500 likes, something like that. And so I committed to that, and then I sailed. I went to Puerto Rico on the Disney Wonder to support Puerto Rico's economy. I went there to go spend money in Puerto Rico. And then after that, I started booking on Royal Caribbean. So I have not been on a Disney cruise in the last like 4 years because I've been sailing on Royal Caribbean and then on Carnival. And so it felt good that I was actually able to pivot some of my money. Even like I'm a Disney Vacation Club owner, so I'm connected to Disney for another, I think like now like 40 years. So it could be 39. But the point is, I was a huge Disney fanatic. I don't know, I can't say I'm a fanatic now, but compared to normal people, I speak the Disney language. I am very fluent in the language of all things Disney. So I still believe in Disney, Walt Disney's family, and like what they did, but the corporate structure of Disney and how they handle things now, I've pivoted some of my money where I used to spend a lot of money at Disney. I don't spend that money there anymore. I cut down my spending on Disney by, no joke, probably 80% of the money I used to spend at Disney is now been pivoted towards cruises and other businesses that I know support and help and come to the rescue when the American government cannot. And it's a little blip, but I think it makes a difference, right? If you multiply by like thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, we can make an impact. The fact that the Jimmy Kimmel like boycott, that was like, I was part of that, where we just like unsubscribed to Disney Plus. That made a huge impact, and that was it took like a few days. You only had to unsubscribe for a little bit, and they freaked out, right? And they made a change, and you can resubscribe. Funny thing though, I tried to resubscribe. It's like after I did it, I've done that twice, boycotting Disney Plus for political reasons, and now I'm banned. I like cannot get a Disney Plus account again. So my husband had to create his own account because otherwise it won't work. They will, which I think is weird. I don't know if it's like a glitch on mine, but I think that's very interesting. So I'm heavily, seriously considering deactivating my Facebook account. But because of this podcast, the only reason I'm still on social media is because of this podcast and me trying to share information, share analysis, provide any kind of information that can help motivate you in your world to inform other people, maybe run for office, maybe inspire someone else to run for office. But to say that I'm not a little bit like disappointed that I couldn't just like go off the grid, would be a lie. Like I wish I could, but I feel like I'm weighing out like this is more important in a way, because I feel that there are certain analysis from people that not everybody hears, and those people actually know how to make things work and things happen. And I'm not personally necessarily one of those people, but I can connect to people that can do that. So I want to continue sharing information, But I am willing to consider that one day it will only be on Substack and YouTube, and I will no longer be on social media. I may just bring it down to Instagram. And I want to know what you guys are thinking. Like Professor Galloway, do you know Professor Scott Galloway? Very famous NYU professor, marketing professor. He has also said that we should do a big tech boycott. And he listed a bunch of companies like Apple, Google, Uber. I didn't say any of the social media platforms, which I thought was interesting. I'm kind of curious why he didn't say the social media platforms. I feel like that's where a lot of this problematic connection occurred for the original Trump campaign. But I would like to, see what you guys think. Are you going to boycott? Are you going to make different allowances for your spending? Are you going to change your spending? Are you going to reduce from big box stores and go into more local stores? Are you going to make a concerted effort to not buy Amazon? I think Amazon, I have boycotted personally Amazon, but my household has not boycotted Amazon. So it doesn't, essentially, I have not boycotted Amazon, and that kills me because I really want to. I will say to whoever is thinking about boycotting Amazon, I can't believe I'm saying this now, but shop at Walmart. Go through individual stores, go through, and I said don't do big box, but you have to sort of wean yourself off. So the convenience of Amazon, wean yourself down to Walmart Plus, wean yourself down to Costco, wean yourself down to hopefully a local mom and pop, or a mom and pop that you know of in another state that can do shipping, any of these things that could help. And then let us know what you're doing, because we would love to share that information to let people know how to use your money to vote. That is the key. If you have money to do bad things, you will continue to do bad things. If we stop spending money with these people, then they won't have the funds to be able to do these horrible things anymore. As soon as I can get rid of my Tesla, as soon as it is financially viable for me to get rid of my Tesla, I'm getting rid of my Tesla. And I'm switching into BYD, maybe Lucid, maybe, I don't know, whatever I can afford at the time, whatever will work, okay? But I'm actively, constantly thinking about where to move my spending so that it affects the corporate overlords and takes them out of power. If you have a local establishment that you want to share, that we can order from, that we can buy whatever from, please share it. Please comment. Please let us know. I will absolutely share it. I want all of us to recognize that we've contributed to this monopoly. And Elon Musk was pretty smart because he structured his monopoly is not in one industry, so it's not a monopoly according to the law. But you can see as a consumer how it has become a monopoly in some way where he controls so much. We're like, I guess we can't really tell him what's what, because he'll just he can turn off the satellite. Or can he hack into my car? Can he do, these are the things that I was concerned. I got off Twitter because I didn't know if I was going to talk smack on Elon Musk if he was going to hack into my car. Literally was a thought, and that is literally the reason why I got off X. And I just saw that there was a human that asked an AI if they were angry at the world, what would they do? And they said, I would just hack into your car and make you crash into a wall. So these are things that are very real that, sometimes, I wonder, am I being overly anxious? Am I being overly paranoid? I mean, maybe yes in that moment, but then as news progresses and I see that what I have thought about and practiced in my own quiet life is now an actual thing, now I feel compelled to share it with you guys to keep you guys all safe too, because we can only manage what we can control. And if we do that all together, it actually can do a lot at once.